Welcome back. We're on Domain 9, Chemical Matter, Lesson 7, Solutions. Our objectives are to use text evidence to distinguish between mixtures, solutions, and compounds, and to organize our writing to allow others to make the same distinctions. We're going to also report on fossil creation, summarize, and synthesizing a written text with other sources. Some key vocabulary for today's lesson. Horizon, where the earth seems to meet the sky. Mixture is two or more substances that are combined without changing their chemical composition. Dissolve is to turn it into a solution. Suspicious is giving the impression of dishonest behavior, and decompose is to decay. Okay, we have our independent reading for today. So we have tests as rules. Scientists have to be very precise about their terms and concepts. I can't say something is a solution when something is it's a compound. All sorts of terrible things might happen. For example, for medicines to be safe and effective, we need to know exactly what kind of elements, compounds, mixtures, and solutions are being used. Below are my rules for deciding if something is an element or a compound. I devise my rules by asking myself the following questions. Can people use the rule to answer the question, is something an element or a compound? Is it possible to decide the answer to the question I ask in each case? And is the chart organized in a way that is easy to understand and use? So they start with, is the atom bonded? If it is, they move to the next part. Is there more than one kind of atom in the bonded molecule? If it's yes, it's a compound. If it's no, it's an element. If the atom is not bonded, we would go down here. Is there more than one kind of atom present? If it's not, it's an element. If it's a yes, it's two or more elements. So notice how this is pretty easy to follow because you just kind of follow the arrows. How do fossils form? So these are the steps that it takes for a fossil to form. So the first thing is the animal has to die. Then the remains of the body start to rot and get covered with mud. Notice how the animal is on top of the soil and it's slowly kind of making its way down because remember, sediments and things start piling on top of it and get covered. So at this point, the remains are already rotting, but they're also getting covered with mud. Over time, the layers of those sediments cover those bones. So as time goes on, more and more things get layered on top of the bones. And then the sediments encase the bones and harden them into rock. So remember, mud tends to be really soft. But eventually, if enough sediment gets locked on top of it, it becomes to harden and becomes a rock. When that happens, as the bones slowly decay, the minerals filter down into space and replace the chemicals in the bones. Layers of the rock get worn away by wind and erosion, and a fossil is discovered. So over time, once the composition of the bone starts to change, they begin to become solid and they stay in that form. Now, wind comes by and rain and all these other components that come, and it breaks down the sediment that was built up on top. So you can see how all this sediment has been placed on top of the fossil, and over time it starts to wear away. Now, you can see how that reveals the bones or the fossil of the dinosaur because all that sediment has worn away. So your assessment for today is to answer the questions about Chapter 5, and we will see everyone in our next lesson.